Hi and welcome to Swedish Plant Guys. Today we're going to talk a little bit about your Christmas tree because Christmas is coming and in a rapid speed. So in a couple of weeks there are lots of you that are going to go out and buy a Christmas tree. And I thought we would make you a little tips and tricks video on how to take care of your Christmas tree so that it lasts all through Christmas and maybe a couple of weeks into the new year as well. It's very different when people throw out the Christmas tree, but you don't want to have your vacuum cleaner out all the time. So the better the tree is, the better for you. So let's get started. First of all, you have to decide on which type of tree you're going to buy. Now that is usually up to whatever preference you have on what a tree should look like. Here in Sweden we have maybe 4 different choices to make. We have the most common tree, we call it rödgran here in Sweden, or red spruce in English. The Latin name is Picea abies, so you know which one I'm talking about. That is the most common here in Sweden, and 70 to 80% of all the trees are this type of species that are sold as a Christmas tree. Now I have one with us here today that we're going to use and show, and that is not the red spruce. This is what we call kungsgran or king spruce in English. Now the Latin name is Abies nordmanniana. Abies nordmanniana, and it's my favorite type of Christmas tree. But we have 2 other types as well. We have a variation that is called silver spruce. And the Latin name is Picea, no, it's Abies alba, sorry. And also the blue spruce, which is a Picea pungens. Now both these types, the blue spruce and the silver spruce, have a problem for you, and that is that it can emit a little bit of an odor. Now it's not a pleasant odor, so if you've had a tree sometimes that have been smelling a little bit, it's probably one of these 2 types. However, there is a big advantage, at least with the blue spruce. If you have cats at home, usually the Christmas tree is a very fun playground for the cats. But the blue spruce is very, very sticky. The pines on the blue spruce are almost sharp, which means that the cat is going to avoid the tree at any cost. So if you have a cat at home, maybe you should look at the Picea pungens to see if that can help you with that problem. But here in Sweden, it's usually the red spruce or the king spruce that we use as a Christmas tree. And I have here with me a king spruce, or I will continue calling it kungsgran because that's what we call it here in Sweden. And I'm going to show you what to do with it when you buy it. But the first thing is that when you go out to the grower or the supermarket or wherever you're going to buy your Christmas tree, they're all usually lined up in a long straight row so that you can look at it. The first thing you should do is to find a tree that you think is okay, and then you should pick it up. Because the tree should be very, very heavy. So when you pick it up, it should be a problem for you to lift it. It should be very, very heavy. Now, that means that all of the tree is full of water. It has water all along the trunk and even all around out on the branches. If the tree doesn't weigh a lot, it means that it's quite dry. And if you buy a tree that is dry to start out with, you're going to have problems later on in Christmas. So the first thing you do, step 1, is to feel the tree so that it's very, very heavy. When you look at the tree, you can look at the newest needles all the way out into the top of the branch. And you can actually pull on them a little bit, just a little bit, to see. If they stay on, that usually means that the tree is well. But if they come loose very easily, that means that something is wrong with the tree. It could mean that it doesn't have any water inside of it, but it could also have other issues. So just feel a little bit. You shouldn't pull very hard, just a little bit. And if it stays on, that's fine. So feel the weight and feel the needles on the latest part of the branch. Now, many people, when they are looking at the trees, they are maybe 2 people out and they want to see how it looks, to see that it's symmetrical or what kind of shape you want. And usually that means that you take it out and you do like this. You spin it around a lot, maybe move it. But what's actually happening when you're doing this, you're actually crushing the small tubes that are going to lead the water up into the tree. Now, even if you don't do this when you buy it, you can be sure that maybe 10, 15 or 20 people before you have done this. So that's why you need to be aware of this when you take it home, because when you have put the tree on the ground, you have injured these small water tubes that are going to take the water up into the tree. Now you have selected the tree that you want to have, and they're going to wrap it up for you so you can take it home in your car. Now when you get home, there is another thing you have to consider, and that is the trees have usually been standing outside. And here in Sweden, when we are approaching winter, as it is now, it's quite cold outside. So if you took the tree and just took it right inside where we have maybe 20, 22 degrees Celsius, it's going to have a shock of the temperature difference between outside and inside. So if you can, make sure that when you get the tree home, you place it somewhere where it's a little bit warmer than outside. So if you have a balcony, maybe the balcony has glass around it as well. You have a garage or a greenhouse or anything that is not heated but warmer than outside. That's where you put the tree. And you keep it there for a couple of days so that it gets used to the heat that it's going to have inside. But before you put it in your balcony or in your greenhouse, you have to do one thing when you get home. Because like I said before, the water pipes down below have been crushed. So you have to make a new cut. Now, don't make that cut when you're at the dealer where you bought it. Make that cut when you get home, because then you know that you will not injure the stem yourself. I'm going to show you how much to cut. Now this is what it looks like down below, and we have quite a large piece here to play with, and that's not always the case. Sometimes when you get your tree, you only get maybe 10, 15 centimeters. Now here is a good 25 to 30 centimeters, which is fine. And here you have to check how big this has to be for where you're going to put your tree, what type of container you have for your tree. But to make this tree start drinking water again, we have to make a new incision. And it's very important to know that these small tubes that are going to take the water up into the tree are located in the bark and in between the bark and the stem. So it's really, really delicate. So start by making the first cut when you get home. You have to take out a large piece, 3 to at least 5 centimeters, 3 to 5 centimeters, so that you're quite sure that the tubes are not crushed that far up the stem. So we're going to take away maybe 5 centimeters to start with. There, it got a little warm, so I had to take that off. Well, now you've made a cut for about 6 or 7 centimeters we took off. And now we know that this part here have no injuries, which means that it's going to be able to suck up the water into the tree. So when you handle the tree from here on out, make sure that you don't put it down or injure it in any way here. Now, like I said, when you get the tree home and you've done this, put it in some water and put it somewhere where it's warmer than outside, but not as warm as inside. And then you keep it there for a couple of days. This is what I use for my Christmas tree every year. And it has quite a big size. And that's important because a tree like this is going to drink quite a lot of water. So the bigger, the better. Normally they're not as big as this, and this contains maybe 3 liters of water inside of this. But when we put the stem in here, that reduces the volume to maybe 1.5 liter of water. And that's not much. But you have to try out, of course, to see that the stem is going to fit the container you want the tree in. So just make a quick look and see. Now, the best containers for Christmas trees, inside of it, it has a small arrow that and that arrow has 2 different functions. First of all, it's quite good when you put it down, when you put the tree down in here, to have that arrow, which means that it's going to lock the stem to the arrow in the bottom. Pointy, sharp arrow. The other function is that it means that the tree stem is elevated a couple of millimeters above the ground or above the bottom of the container. Because if you put the tree all the way down in the bottom of the container, the water will have a problem going up the tubes that we talked about. So you have to elevate the stem a couple of millimeters so that the water can go up the stem. Now, you've had your Christmas tree in your garage for a couple of days. You could have it there for 1, maybe 2 weeks. That's not a problem. Just see to it that it always have a little bit of water so it doesn't die. But when it's time to move the tree inside, I always do this. I make a new incision on the stem. But this time you know that nobody has crushed these small tubes. So you just have to make a new cut that is maybe 1 centimeter up or a couple of millimeters. It doesn't have to be a lot. But make a new incision so that the tubes are as vibrant as possible. Because then, when you've made that new cut, it's time to put the tree inside. And now it's a bit of a hurry. After you've made this incision, you want to take the tree inside and put it in water as soon as possible. Because if you wait maybe an hour, a lot of these small tubes are going to dry out and then they're not going to work, which means that not all of the tubes inside of the bark is going to be able to suck up the water, and you want every single one of them to work. So when you make the new cut, take it inside as quickly as you can, put it in water. Now when you put it inside, there are a couple of things you have to consider there as well. Never ever put the tree close to your radiator, because that warm, dry heat is going to suck out a lot of the water inside of the tree, and you don't want that. Also, of course, don't put it next to, if you have a inside stove or an inside fireplace. Never close to that as well. Partly because it can set the tree on fire, but also because of the heat. You have to put it somewhere in the room where you don't have all that excess heat. That means that the tree is going to live longer and be as well as you can get it. But when you got it inside, you've got some water inside of your container. Here comes maybe the most important thing. It can never dry out, not even once. Because if it dries out in the container, the tubes, as we've spoken so much about today, is going to start to dry out, and then they're not going to work again. So when you've watered it for the first time inside, make sure that it has water all the time. All the time. And a tree like this, which is about just over 2 meters high, is going to, the first couple of days, is going to drink maybe 5 up to 6 liters of water. And if you have a small container that only maybe can take 1 liter of water, that means you will have to fill it up maybe a couple of times a day. So make sure that it doesn't dry out. Now, if you follow all these steps, you could theoretically have the tree standing inside of your house all the way until summer. And I know that there is a lot of things that people say you should have inside of the water. I've heard everything from sugar added to the water. I've heard some type of alcohol, like vodka, should help as well. Also brustabletter. How do we call that? Small tablets that bubbles inside of water. Magnesyl, we call it in Swedish. Alka-Seltzer, yeah, exactly. That should also help, I've read. But forget all of those things. You need clean tap water. That's it. You don't have to add anything else. If you add something to it, you could add some normal nutrients, normal plant nutrients for houseplants. But you don't have to. Just plain water, and make sure that it never, ever dries out. Now I have an extra tip for you before we leave. There, I had to clear it out here. So, like I said, we have an extra tip for you. Because there is companies around the world that makes self-watering systems for your Christmas tree. And I have one here that looks like a small package, but it's made out of plastic. And it also has a little hole down here in the bottom where you can add the tube like this. And it's quite easy. It's empty inside. And this small container can hold up to 5 liters of water. So what you do with this one is that you put it next to or under your Christmas tree when you have the tree in your container. Then you put the small tube into your container, and then you strap it around with some cordage of some sort so that it will stay there. You fill up this self-watering system with water all the way up, and then you just raise the pot like this. What happens is that the water starts to run through the hose down to your container and starts to fill it up. Now when it starts to fill up to maybe half of the container, you can just set down the self-watering system. Now what's going to happen here is that you will find yourself with a closed system here, so that the water inside of this container will have the exact same amount in this container. So if I should add water to this container, it will rise in here, it will go through the tube, and it will rise here as well. And it will always have the same amount in both containers. Which means that you have an extra 5 liters of water to add to your Christmas tree. And also, it looks like a package. So here in Sweden, we put all of our packages under the tree, and I think that's the way to do it in all of the world, but it looks nice as well. So that's an extra tip for you. You can buy yourself a self-watering system or create it yourself with some easy tools like this to make your tree last longer, and you don't have to clean up all the time. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and also click that little bell so that you get all notifications from when we add new videos to this channel. And have a happy Christmas, and I'll see you next time. Hej då!